You were never meant to carry it all alone. You were meant to release it, to trust the divine orchestration of your story. The second you stop clutching for certainty, you start holding peace. The second you stop forcing, you start flowing. And that right there is what it truly means to let go and let God. You've been trying to hold the universe together with both hands, haven't you? You keep replaying every scenario, every mistake, every possible future, as if your overthinking could reprogram destiny. You wake up with your mind already sprinting, trying to outthink what only faith can navigate. You call it being responsible, but really it's fear in disguise. You're scared that if you stop steering, everything will crash. But what if it's not supposed to be in your hands anymore? What if the thing you're gripping so tightly is the very thing keeping you from peace? There's a strange power in surrender, one that doesn't make sense to the logical mind. We grow up believing we have to control, calculate, and conquer. But control is heavy. It's exhausting to carry the illusion that you're in charge of every outcome. Surrender is not waving the white flag. It's opening your hands and saying, okay, I trust you more than I trust me. And that's not weakness, that's courage. Because real strength isn't in the grip, it's in the release. You've been trying to force alignment when alignment can only flow. You're chasing clarity when sometimes all God wants is your trust. You think surrender means you stop moving. But no, it means you start moving differently. You stop reacting and start responding. You stop panicking and start pacing yourself with peace. That's the art of letting go, moving forward without dragging fear behind you. Imagine your life is a river, and you've been trying to paddle upstream, exhausting yourself, sweating, gasping, fighting the current. Letting go doesn't mean you leave the boat. It means you drop the oars and trust the flow. The current already knows where you're supposed to go. You don't need to fight it, you need to flow with it. Because every time you surrender control, you open a new door for divine direction. The moment you let go, your spirit breathes again. That tension in your chest, it starts to ease. That constant mental chatter, it starts to quiet down. Surrender gives you access to the peace that control could never buy. You start realizing that the universe isn't trying to punish you, it's trying to guide you. But it can't do that while you're still trying to do its job. You're not meant to carry every burden. You're meant to trust the hands that hold you. So breathe. Loosen your grip. You are not falling apart, you're falling into alignment. Every time you let go, something sacred begins to rise. Every time you stop forcing, something divine starts forming. That's not magic, it's trust. And that's where everything begins to shift. You want everything planned out, the when, the where, the how. You want certainty before you move, clarity before you trust, and proof before you believe. But that's not faith. That's fear wearing a clever disguise. You've mistaken control for safety, but all it's ever given you is stress. Control makes you feel powerful for a moment, but eventually it burns you out because life doesn't bend to your blueprints. Control is an illusion that feeds the ego and starves the soul. It convinces you that if you can predict every outcome, you can protect yourself from pain. But pain doesn't work that way. Growth doesn't work that way. Life is unpredictable because it's alive, it breathes, moves, shifts, and surprises. Trying to control life is like trying to cage the wind. You might think you've got it for a second, but eventually it slips through your fingers. Every time you force an outcome, you block a miracle. Every time you cling to your version of how it should happen, you close the door to how it's meant to happen. You're not here to play architect of the universe. You're here to cooperate with its flow. And once you realize that, peace starts to replace panic. You don't need to know how. It's not your department. Your job is to believe and show up. That's all. Some of your greatest blessings will come disguised as detours. The no you're angry about might be redirecting you to a better, wise. The door that closed on you might have been saving you from what you couldn't see. Life isn't random. It's rearranging itself around your purpose. So stop asking, why isn't this working? And start asking, what's trying to work through me? The universe is never wrong in its timing, only we are impatient in our perception. Letting go of control doesn't mean chaos, it means trust. It's realizing that you don't have to micromanage the divine. You don't have to play God to receive from God. You just have to release your grip and allow space for miracles to move. And when you do that, peace becomes your new normal. You were never meant to control everything. You were meant to align with something greater. The illusion of control dissolves the moment you realize this life doesn't need your supervision, it needs your surrender. Once you see that clearly, the illusion shatters, and faith finally steps in. People talk about faith like it's sitting still and hoping for the best. But real faith is movement. It's motion with conviction. Faith doesn't mean doing nothing. It means doing what you can while trusting that God's handling what you can't. It's walking into the unknown with steady steps, even when your knees are shaking. Faith doesn't eliminate fear, it outshines it. When you let go and let God, you don't lose your ambition, you purify it, you stop hustling from anxiety and start working from alignment. You don't chase every opportunity like it's your last, you move with discernment, knowing the right doors will open when it's time. Faith gives you rhythm. It teaches you when to act, when to pause, when to rest, and when to rise. Faith is not a concept, it's a lifestyle. It's what happens when you choose belief over panic, presence over pressure, and peace over control. You start realizing that faith isn't something you feel, it's something you practice. It's waking up every day and saying, even if I don't see it yet, I'll still walk like it's on the way. The world will tell you to only move when it's logical. Faith will whisper, move anyway. Logic says, wait until you're ready. Faith says, you'll never feel ready, just go. Logic measures outcomes. Faith measures obedience. And once you understand that, every step becomes sacred, no matter how small. Faith doesn't require you to understand the entire plan. It just requires you to trust the next step. You can't build the future by waiting for perfect certainty. You build it by showing up with imperfect trust. You keep walking even when the path disappears because you know something greater is paving it beneath your feet. And the beauty of it all, when you act in faith, heaven responds. The universe starts rearranging itself around your movement. The moment you stop overthinking and start obeying, you step into a realm where miracles become natural and alignment becomes your atmosphere. You've spent nights rewinding every decision, every conversation, every missed chance in your head like an endless loop that never brings peace. You're addicted to figuring it all out before taking the next step, as if life will hand you a printed script before the performance. You replay scenarios that haven't even happened, arguing with outcomes that exist only in your imagination. That's what overthinking does. It convinces you that control is protection, but it's really just anxiety dressed as preparation. You're trying to outsmart God, to see the whole staircase when you were only ever meant to take the next step. Overthinking is the silent thief of peace. It's like standing in quicksand. The more you struggle to figure it out, the deeper you sink. You call it being cautious, but what it really is fear pretending to be wisdom. There's nothing wise about exhausting your spirit trying to predict what's already written. You're not supposed to know the full plan. You're supposed to trust that the one who does won't fail you. Because every time you overthink, you're telling the universe, I don't trust you to get this right. You don't need to understand how it's going to happen. You just need to believe that it will. The outcome isn't your responsibility. The obedience is. You do your part, show up, give your best, stay aligned, and then release the rest. That's where true power lies in release, not resistance. The more you try to control the result, the more tension you create, and tension blocks flow. But when you surrender your obsession with how, things start to unfold with an ease that control could never create. Think about all the time something turned out better than you expected. You didn't plan those blessings. They just arrived perfectly timed, perfectly formed. That wasn't a coincidence, that was divine choreography. Life is smarter than your strategy. God's plan is more detailed than your perfectionism. Every delay, every redirection, every unanswered prayer is part of a pattern that only makes sense when you zoom out. You don't need to see the final picture right now. You just need to keep painting your part. You're not late. You're not behind. You're not forgotten. You're just in the middle of becoming. But when you overthink, you miss the magic of the moment. You start treating life like a problem to solve instead of a mystery to live. You start expecting disaster instead of allowing wonder. Stop trying to predict what's coming and start trusting that what's meant for you can't be missed. Overthinking is you doubting your divine path. Faith is you remembering it's already designed. So breathe, release the what ifs, release the timeline, release the need to understand. Because the more you let go, the clearer things become. The universe doesn't respond to worry, it responds to trust. And when you finally stop overthinking the outcome, you make space for miracles to move, for clarity to find you, and for peace to lead the way. You've been through things that made you question everything: your worth, your faith, your direction. You've looked at your reflection some days and thought, why me? Why this? You've tried to stay strong when everything inside you felt like it was breaking apart. But what if the breaking wasn't punishment? What if it were a transformation? Pain isn't the enemy, it's the messenger. It doesn't show up to destroy you. It shows up to shape you into something stronger, deeper, and more awake than you've ever been. Pain has a way of revealing what comfort tries to hide. When everything's easy, you don't dig deep. You don't question your patterns or your purpose. But when life hurts, you're forced to look closer, to listen harder, to grow higher. If pain shakes you awake, it pushes you out of the illusions you built around yourself. It exposes the lies you believed about your limits. It shows you that you can survive what you thought would kill you, and that realization changes everything. You see, growth doesn't come in calm waters. It comes in storms. You don't become resilient in peace, you become resilient in pressure. Every heartbreak, every rejection, every setback carries a divine assignment. It's not random. It's refining. The fire you walked through wasn't meant to burn you, it was meant to reveal the gold in you. Pain strips away what's temporary so the eternal can rise. You think you're losing something, but you're actually shedding everything that was keeping you from your next level. Every wound you carry is not a weakness, it's wisdom in disguise. Those scars on your heart, they're maps of where grace carried you through. They're reminders that you didn't crumble, you evolved. Pain stretches your capacity to feel, to love, to empathize. It teaches you that faith isn't proven in comfort, it's proven in chaos. And once you realize that, you stop asking, why me? And start asking, what's this trying to teach me? The truth is, pain is sacred. It's the doorway to depth. It's the moment where your spirit gets recalibrated to truth. You don't become strong by avoiding suffering. You become strong by finding meaning inside it. You learn to let the hurt break open your heart, not harden it. You start to see that every struggle you faced was preparing you to carry the blessings you prayed for. You needed that depth, that maturity, that empathy, and pain was the only teacher that could give it to you. So when life hurts, don't curse it, study it. There's revelation hidden in every ache. There's alignment behind every loss. The same thing that broke you might be the thing that builds your destiny. You might not see it now, but pain always carries purpose. It's the divine sculptor chiseling away what you don't need so you can step into who you were always meant to be. You've been waiting for something, an answer, a breakthrough, a sign. You've been pacing floors, praying for doors to open, asking when it will finally be your turn. You look around and see others moving faster, getting what they want, while you're stuck in what feels like an endless delay. But divine timing is not a delay, it's design. Every second of waiting is intentional, even when it feels unbearable. You think you're waiting on God, but sometimes God is waiting on you to grow, to heal, to let go of what can't walk into your next chapter. Timing is the universe's language of precision. You might think you're ready because you're tired of waiting, But readiness isn't about desire. It's about development. You can't put a seed in the ground and demand it to bloom overnight. It needs soil, darkness, water, and time. You can't rush divine growth. If the blessing comes before the lesson, you won't know how to keep it. Divine timing protects you from premature promotion. It ensures that when it comes, you're not just in the right place, but you're the right person. You see, what looks like a delay is often divine protection. That relationship that didn't work out wasn't rejection, it was redirection. That opportunity that didn't happen wasn't punishment, it was preservation. You weren't ready for what you thought you wanted because something greater was still being built behind the scenes. The universe doesn't operate on your impatience, it operates on alignment. The right door will not open until your character matches the level of what's behind it. Sometimes, the waiting season is where the real miracle happens. That silence you hate so much, it's sacred. It's where you build roots before you rise. It's where faith stops being theory and becomes truth. It's where you learn patience, trust, and surrender. Divine timing teaches you to walk by faith, not by schedule. Because if you only believe when things are happening, that's not faith, that's convenience. Real faith believes even when the calendar stays empty. And one day it clicks. You realize the things you once begged for didn't happen because you were meant for something bigger, something beyond your current understanding. You look back and thank God for every not yet that protected your peace, for every delay that saved your destiny. Because when it finally happens, when the door opens and the blessing lands, you'll see why it couldn't have come a minute sooner or a moment later. The divine never rushes and it never forgets. Timing is not about punishment. It's about preparation. What's meant for you is not gone. It's growing, maturing, aligning. It's being polished while you're being prepared. So stop calling the waiting a waste. Every moment is part of the masterpiece. Every second is setting up the perfect collision between your faith and your future. Fear is persuasive. It knows exactly how to sound like logic. It whispers, "Be careful, what if it doesn't work?" It paints disaster on every wall in your mind and convinces you that staying safe is wisdom. But fear doesn't keep you safe. It keeps you stuck. You can't build destiny with a spirit that's constantly expecting destruction. You can't create miracles while entertaining doubt. Fear is a liar that sounds like protection, but it's really imprisonment. Every dream that dies in the hands of fear before it even gets the chance to live. You have to understand that fear and faith cannot coexist in the driver's seat. They're two different navigators heading in opposite directions. Fear drives from panic. Faith drives from peace. Fear needs evidence before it moves. Faith moves before evidence exists. The question is, who are you letting steer your life? Because one leads to possibility and the other leads to paralysis. If fear is driving, faith is locked in the trunk, screaming to be let out. But when you switch places, when faith takes the wheel, everything begins to shift. Fear will always exaggerate what could go wrong, but faith reminds you of what could go right. Fear fixates on the fall, faith focuses on the flight. You have to decide which voice gets your attention. The moment you stop feeding fear, it starves. The moment you stop rehearsing worst-case scenarios, your spirit starts breathing again. The divine never called you to be fearless. He called you to be courageous. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's choosing movement despite it. That's what activates heaven's power, motion born from trust, not certainty. When fear drives, it makes you shrink. It convinces you that you're not enough, that your timing's off, that your dream's too big. It teaches you to worship comfort and call it peace. But comfort zones don't grow fruit, they grow regret. Faith calls you into the uncomfortable because that's where miracles live. You'll never experience divine power by staying where fear feels safe. You have to step out, even if your voice shakes, even if your knees tremble, even if your heart races. Movement kills fear faster than prayer alone. Faith doesn't promise you the absence of danger. It promises you the presence of guidance. It doesn't say the storm won't come. It says you'll still walk through it and reach the other side. When faith drives, storms don't scare you, they strengthen you. Challenges don't crush you, they clarify you. You start realizing that every time you push past fear, you reclaim another piece of your power. You start to feel unstoppable, not because everything's easy, but because you're no longer being controlled by what could go wrong. So stop letting fear drive your decisions, your voice, your destiny. It's time to switch seats. Faith knows the road, even when you can't see the road. Fear was never meant to steer your story. It was only meant to remind you that courage is needed. The moment you let faith take control, fear loses its authority. And that's when you stop surviving and start soaring. You've been holding on to too much for too long. People, memories, mistakes, expectations, control. You grip them tight because letting go feels like losing something vital. You tell yourself, if I let go, it might fall apart. But what if it's already falling apart because you won't let go? Holding on doesn't preserve peace, it suffocates it. You can't receive what's next while clutching what's expired. The truth is, the weight you're carrying isn't proving your strength. It's blocking your freedom. Release doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop clinging. It's not abandonment, it's alignment. It's understanding that some things are meant to pass through you, not stay within you. You were never meant to be a container for every experience. You were meant to be a channel. But the more you hold, the less you flow. You can't expect new blessings when your hands are still full of old pain. The universe can't refill what you refuse to empty. Release is the doorway through which renewal walks in. Sometimes you hold on because you fear the unknown. You think letting go means losing your identity, your control, your comfort. But the irony is, holding on to what's breaking you is what's actually costing you peace. You can't evolve if you keep recycling the same pain. You can't rise if you're still dragging yesterday's weight. Letting go isn't a loss, it's a graduation. It's saying, this chapter served me, but it can't sustain me anymore. The moment you release, you make room for something higher, something healthier, something divine. Releasing doesn't always happen in one grand gesture. Sometimes it's a daily choice. Every morning you wake up and choose not to reopen old wounds. You choose not to replay the conversation. You choose not to fight battles that don't exist anymore. That's real strength. It's easy to stay attached to what's familiar, even if it hurts. But strength is in surrender. It's in looking at what you love and saying, I trust that if it's meant for me, it will return in the right form. That's faith in its rawest form. Trust without evidence, release without resentment. When you release what no longer serves you, your energy changes. Suddenly, your spirit feels lighter, your thoughts clearer, your heart freer. You realize you never lost anything. You just created space for better things to arrive. Release invites peace back home. It removes the static between you and your purpose. You stop operating from desperation and start moving with divine flow. You begin to see that letting go isn't giving up, it's leveling up. It's spiritual decluttering. It's how you make space for destiny to move. And once you taste that freedom, you'll never want to hold on the same way again. You'll stop chasing what's running, stop forcing what's fading, stop begging what's breaking. Because you'll finally understand that everything meant for you will find you when your hands are open, not clenched. That's the power of released. It's the reset button for your soul. It's the point where pain ends and purpose begins. There's a kind of silence that feels like emptiness. The kind where your prayers bounce back unanswered, your efforts go unseen, and your spirit starts whispering, maybe nothing's happening. You look around and nothing seems to be moving. You start to wonder if the divine forgot your address, if the universe stopped listening, if you somehow fell off the radar of destiny. But silence doesn't mean absence. It means activity behind the scenes. The silence you fear is often the soil where miracles are forming roots. You can't see them yet, but they're there, growing in the dark, waiting for the right moment to break through. The hardest test of faith is not when everything's falling apart. It's when nothing seems to be happening at all. Because silence exposes your trust level. It shows whether your faith was built on feelings or a foundation. Anyone can trust when the signs are loud, when doors are swinging open, when prayers are instantly answered. But can you trust when heaven goes quiet? Can you keep believing when there's no confirmation, no validation, no movement? That's where the real growth happens, when you choose faith without feedback. Sometimes silence is sacred. It's not punishment, it's preparation. It's where your character gets refined, your patience gets stretched, and your heart gets tuned to divine timing. You're being strengthened in the quiet, even if you can't feel it. The seed doesn't hear applause when it's underground, but it's still becoming something beautiful. You're in that same phase. Just because you can't see progress doesn't mean there isn't any. Stillness is not stagnation. It's alignment waiting for activation. When you trust the process in silence, you shift from panic to peace. You stop asking when and start saying whenever. You stop begging for signs and start building your faith without them. That's when you move from religious belief to spiritual knowing. You no longer need evidence to believe. You become the evidence. People look at you and see someone who stands tall in uncertainty, someone who smiles even in delay, someone who still moves forward without needing to see the whole map. That's what trust looks like. It's quiet but powerful. The process will always test your patience before it reveals its promise. It will push you to the edge of surrender, where your plans no longer work and your timeline no longer matters. That's where trust takes over. That's where you stop trying to rush what's divine. You realize that what's meant for you won't arrive through panic. It will arrive through peace. And peace doesn't need proof to exist. It just knows. You start living from that knowing, anchored, calm, unshaken. And one day, without warning, the silence breaks. The things that felt stuck start to flow. The prayers that seemed ignored begin to bloom in front of you. And it's then you understand nothing was ever delayed, nothing was ever denied. It was just being aligned. The silence was never a void. It was a vow from the divine saying, I'm still working, even when you can't hear me. And that's why you keep trusting, even in the quiet. You can't just sit and wish your way into transformation. You can't pray for change while staying perfectly still in the same habits that keep you stuck. Faith is not waiting, it's walking. Too many people are sitting on their knees asking for miracles while refusing to move their feet. But motion is the language of faith. The divine doesn't respond to stagnation, it responds to movement. You say you're waiting on God, but often God is waiting on you to take the first step so he can meet you halfway. You can't expect the sea to part if you never step toward it. You can't expect the mountain to move if you never push forward. Miracles don't manifest in comfort zones. They live on the edge of courage. Every great story of faith begins with movement. Abraham left home, Moses lifted his staff, David ran toward Goliath, Peter stepped out of the boat. None of them had a guarantee. They just had trust. That's the pattern: obedience first, evidence later. You don't get to see the full miracle until you move into it. Movement breaks spiritual inertia. Every small act of courage sends a signal to the universe, I'm ready. You don't need to know the whole plan to make a move. You don't need a perfect strategy, you need momentum. The first step is never about where it takes you, it's about who it turns you into. Each step strengthens your faith muscles, silences fear, and draws divine assistance closer. When you move, doors start appearing that didn't exist when you were standing still. Life rearranges itself around your motion. Fear loves to freeze you in place. It convinces you to wait until you feel ready, but readiness never comes before movement. You become ready through the act of doing. Miracles require motion because faith grows through participation, not observation. You can't just talk about change, you have to embody it. The act of movement tells heaven that you trust the process enough to participate in it. It's saying, I believe something's waiting for me on the other side of this step. That's not arrogance, that's faith in action. Every time you move forward in uncertainty, you create a ripple effect. That first call, that first idea, that first leap, It may look small, but it activates everything. The divine doesn't multiply hesitation, it multiplies effort. You don't have to sprint, you just have to move. Because once you move, momentum builds. Once you act, opportunities awaken. You'll start noticing synchronicities, random connections, perfect timing, open doors, all because you finally decided to act. So don't sit there waiting for the perfect moment. There is no perfect moment. Only a perfect God who meets you in imperfect action. Miracles meet movement. Faith doesn't sit idle, it walks, it builds, it believes in motion. The breakthrough you're praying for isn't waiting to be given, it's waiting to be triggered. All it takes is one act of faith, one move forward, one decision to stop waiting and start walking. Because the divine can only steer what's in motion. You've been fighting so hard to control everything, to fix what's broken, to predict the unpredictable, to manage what was never yours to manage. You carry the weight of outcomes, people, expectations, and fears on your back like it's your job to hold the universe together. But there comes a point where you realize control is an illusion, and it's exhausting trying to play God. You keep trying to steer storms that were meant to shape you, not destroy you. That's where surrender comes in, not as defeat, but as liberation. Freedom begins where control ends. Surrender is not giving up, it's giving over. It's handing the steering wheel to the divine and saying, I trust you more than my understanding. It's not apathy, it's alignment. It's releasing your obsession with outcomes and embracing the peace of letting life unfold. When you surrender, you don't lose power, you gain it. Because now your energy isn't wasted on resistance, it's invested in trust. Surrender turns chaos into calm, panic into peace, fear into flow. It's not weakness, it's wisdom that knows when to release what's beyond reach. We've been taught to fight for control, to hustle for certainty, to push until things bend our way. But freedom doesn't live in control, it lives in cooperation with the divine current. When you stop trying to force outcomes, life starts moving through you instead of against you. That's when you feel the shift from tension to trust, from grasping to grace. You realize you were never meant to hold it all. You were meant to hand it over. And the moment you do, something miraculous happens. Life breathes again. Surrender doesn't mean everything instantly gets easy. It means you stop carrying unnecessary weight. It means you trust that even the detours have purpose. It's the difference between rowing upstream in exhaustion and letting the current carry you forward. You still show up. You still act. You still care, but you stop micromanaging miracles. You let life guide you instead of forcing it to obey your script. And in that release, you rediscover something sacred, peace without explanation. When you surrender, you create space for divine flow. You stop clinging to what's fading and open your hands for what's forming. You stop needing to know how and start trusting who. Every moment of surrender softens the ego and strengthens the spirit. It's not passive, it's powerful. Because when you let go, you're not quitting, you're cooperating with a higher rhythm. You realize that everything that's meant for you doesn't need to be chased. It will find you when you're aligned, not anxious. And then comes the freedom of not having to figure it all out. The freedom of waking up without fear of the unknown. The freedom of knowing that what's for you will never miss you. That kind of peace can't be bought, earned, or forced. It's born in surrender. It's the peace of finally exhaling after years of holding on too tight. Freedom doesn't come from control, it comes from trust. Finally saying, I don't have to know how, I just have to know who.